What is something that you have seen that creeped you out in the woods, mountains, or oceans that you still to this day have no explanation for? Part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was traveling by bus from Mexico City to Merida. It was the night and we were passing the mountains of Veracruz. Suddenly I looked up and I saw tons of lights forming the shape of a spiral spinning on top of the mountain. I watched them for the longest time. It was a big spiral, and then saw one by one disappear into the mountain. Many people have seen lights going into the same mountains in Orizaba. One summer, I was in a summer camp that was pretty wooded. When I first got there, I was disappointed that once again I found a camp with no creepy urban legends to it. All my friends go to summer camps that have them. Just thought it was going to be a normal summer camp. But then one evening, the boys were walking back to our cabin and some of the much younger kids just suddenly screamed. When I asked what happened, they said they looked down the hill where the densest woods were and said they saw what looked like a zombie. Naturally, I didn't believe them at first. Then, the next night, I walked back to our cabin alone and I heard a sound coming from the woods at the bottom of the hill, and what I saw next gave me instant shivers for the rest of the summer. It was, from the way it looked and walked and groaned, a zombie. The little kids were right. Unfortunately, when I came running back to the cabin, the little kids were the only ones who believed me. Even if nobody else believed me, I know exactly what I saw. Once I was mountain biking and came to a stream, I found 2 sets of girls' clothing neatly folded on a log. There was a waterfall downstream that was a semi-secret spot for swimming. I thought I was in luck to see some girls skinny dipping. Nope, not a trace of any other human. Got a weird vibe and headed back the way I came. Was watching an ocean from a cliff nearby where I live. I go there whenever I feel stressed because it's a better alternative than smoking. One day I was watching a shark just swimming around and once caught a fish. Then, while I was looking at it, it just disappeared. No explanation. Never saw it for the next 10 or so minutes. I sat there. Clear waters and clear sight. This stressed me out more than I usually was, and I went to this spot to de-stress. Even a year or so later, I still am cautious about that spot. Flinders Ranges, South Australia. Now, I don't believe in UFOs. However, when on a week-long course, the last night we slept without tents, so we pretty much stargazed till we slept. Actually, really nice clear stars. There's so many. I was watching what I thought was a satellite, but from going one way to making an immediate 90 degrees turn, I was very convinced something was watching the Earth. Aha! However, that's my first and last time I've seen something like such. I was on holiday in Greece with my mom. Naturally, we went for a swim. The waters weren't all that clear, but nevertheless, it was still an enjoyable experience. Until we both saw what looked a lot like a human foot, that of a drowned person to be exact. I got terrified and tried to quickly make my way to the beach. My mom stayed behind and tried to figure out what the hell was going on. She didn't dare move close to the foot thingy. She thought it could have been a diver, but nobody ever emerged. We stayed on the beach waiting for somebody to show up, considering the worst case scenario that it could have been a corpse, but it didn't make any sense for it should have floated. So up to this day, I have no good explanation of what happened, but I'm sure as hell very wary whenever I go swimming. Sometimes when we go to my mom's province, we have a route to the mountains. I do enjoy the view, even though there are trees and unfinished houses that scare the crap out of me when we travel at night. I blame the scary-ass movies they show at the bus at night. We stop at those bus stops to eat or buy snacks. I didn't buy it at the time, so I stayed inside the bus with my sleeping brother. I looked at the window to look for my grandpa, who was traveling with us with grandma, because I'm anxious he might be left behind. But since I can't see him, I looked at the road. Across was an unfinished house. I saw a lady there standing in front of the house door. It was weird because the house looks abandoned. I stood up and looked at the bus door. My grandpa was entering. I was relieved. After a few minutes, the bus started to move. We passed by the house and the lady was gone, and that scared the shit out of me. Was driving through a rural area in the middle of bum F nowhere. Came up on a trailer home with tombstones in the front yard. Keep in mind, this was nowhere near Halloween season. We keep driving past and there's a noose in the backyard hanging from a tractor. Too small for deer or any other hunting game, and there were no farms nearby. Turned around and hauled ass the other way. have pictures of the noose. Still to this day, zero rational explanation. I was headed to my friend's house in rural Maine after dark to babysit for her while she had a date night. The route there is all back roads, no streetlights, large fields and woodland all around. I came up a hill and suddenly almost hit a mountain lion with my car. I didn't think they were in Maine. I thought the largest cat we had was maybe a Canada lynx, but this big cat spanned the entire front of my car, was brown, and had a long tail. My headlights illuminated it for a moment before it dashed out of the way. I hit my brakes and it ended up behind my car, illuminated by my taillights. I could see it in my rearview mirror, and then it started approaching my car, so I got the F out of there. While speeding away, I noticed the family was cooking on a grill on their porch. Wonder if the mountain lion was stalking them or could smell them cooking. In the woods near where my mother lives, there's a solid concrete wall standing alone at the root of a rocky hill. If there were foundations, etc., signs of a house had once been there or that was left unbuilt, it wouldn't bother me. But it's completely alone, without anything similar nearby. 15 years we've walked past it almost daily and still can't figure it out. I live in Washington State, and where I live there aren't any den-building types of animals like beavers. Near one of the local pools, about 2 to 3 miles out, there's a huge-ass den made from sticks that's like 10 feet tall. My friend and I went out to explore it, but since we were wimps, we brought weapons just in case, BB gun and a metal bat. We got up to the site, and there was this weird-ass symbol carved in a tree. The thing is, the marking was like 12 feet high. There were arrow-like structures around the area made from rocks. We walked around the den thing and full-on sprinted the hell out of there after we saw slight movement coming from inside the den. There were no homeless people in our area, and no human could pick up like 50 to 175 pound sticks or logs on their own without hurting themselves and make a den. I suspect that it was Bigfoot, because Washington State is known as the Bigfoot State, because we have the most amount of Bigfoot sightings. It truly scared the hell out of us. Was camping in the woods, just talking with my dad, and we heard loud rustling. We look where it's coming from, and all we see is a really skinny black mass, 2.1 to 2.4 meters tall, 7 to 8 feet. We just stared at it for a bit, and it ran across what I guess you can call a tree line. It must have cleared 12 meters in just a couple of seconds, around 40 feet. Not a clue what it was, but it freaked us out enough to nope right the F out of there. In 2005, my friends and I saw a creature that looked like a wolf, but had really long spikes on its back and abnormally large back legs. It was laying in a pool of its own blood in the highway. We drove around it, but decided to turn around and move it out of the road. It was on a corner, but when we got back to the spot, not 2 minutes later, there was no sign of it at all, like it had never existed. Still have no explanation for what it was or where it went. I was once on a road down the edge of a wooded area in upstate New York with my roommate. Right as we get to a bend in the road, this helicopter flies over, shining a spotlight over an area nearby where the trees give way to a field. And next thing you know, this guy dressed in all white comes running out of the forest right towards us, and the helicopter is tracking him with their spotlight. My roommate and I turned back and began to run as fast as we could back to our apartment down the road. We got inside and locked up as quick as we possibly could. Never read anything in the papers or saw any news that would explain what we saw that night. When I was about 16, I was wandering the woods of Moscow, East Texas, a little off of Rock Island Road. Walking through the woods, I started to smell rot and decay. Out of morbid curiosity, I followed the smell. I wish I never done it, but I got something cool out of it. Well, as I followed the smell, I noticed small amounts of blood, like a wounded animal had just walked for, but I was wrong. It turned out to be a stump about 4 feet across with a machete sticking out of it covered in blood. I don't know what the hell possessed me, but I took the goddamn machete and walked home. Never said a word of it to anyone. I still have the goddamn thing to this day. I never found out truly what the smell was. I assume it was a butchered deer. Camping out in the Georgia wilderness with me, my father, my brother, and my friend John. Now, this site was already kinda sketch. This was a community camping area and literally no one is around. The only other 2 people there are the ranger and the groundskeeper. Ranger was a kindly old-timer. The groundskeeper, some special needs type that was built like a tank. Good folk. So, we go about our day doing the usual campy stuff, still getting the whacked-out vibe, odd visuals etched into trees like demonic shit and the like, but we wrote that off as to some assholes who were here prior to just put that up to creep us out. Whatever. The day continues. We set up camp and start a fire. It's getting dark out, and we are chilling, drinking some beers, till the middle of it is just talking and the like. I hear my dad go, "Hey, who's there?" We turn to where he's looking, and we see a figure. Bright bone white. We only see 2 legs and 2 arms. No other features. It doesn't move. So we are on alert. We all have firearms, so we feel generally secure. However, shit begins to get weirder. After a moment, Dowd shouts again, "Hey, you lost?" The figure sort of flares brightly for a moment. Then behind us, my brother goes, "Shit, look." We turn and see another figure, tall and glowing. Then another and another, all blink into existence until 5 surround us in the woods, unmoving and sitting completely still. Then all of a sudden, the figures of light flare very bright for a moment as we hear a quiet shriek off in the distance. Then, as it ends, the light instantly dies. We get to our car, guns drawn, and take off to the ranger's station. We get there, greeted by the ranger and groundskeeper, and he asks what the fuss was about. We tell him the story, and when the light figures come up, his expression drops like a sack of bricks, and he calls the groundsman. We will call him Gary. He begins to slowly mumble his story out. He tells us a story of him finishing a bit of work just after nightfall, and just as he was finishing up, the light people, as he put it, appeared and chased him. The ranger looked at us, absolutely horrified. I didn't think he was for real due to his mental lacking, boys. The motel's on me. Let's get the F out of here. We went to a local town's motel and stayed the night with the ranger and his groundkeeper, just drinking and having a good old time, but still slightly horrified. We went to grab our stuff the next day. When we got back to grab our shit, we never went back.